Hello everybody, how's it going? I'm Matt Groves, and you might have noticed if you've been hanging out that we got some errors going on. In fact, there's an error right on top of my feed right now. I'll talk about that in a second. Let me get that turned off. I think that would be, which one is that? This one? There we go. Okay. So welcome to another office hours. I'm still working on the real world project called Conduit implementation with ASP.NET and Couchbase. And what I want to focus on today, despite those errors, I'm not going to have time for that this morning, I don't think. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But what I want to work on today is some data access refactoring. And I want to focus on Couchbase here today and some of the decisions I have to make in order to make this project function efficiently and be able to handle a real-world workload, which, by the way, is something we might actually touch on later in this project. Might bring in somebody to help us do some load testing on this project to see if we need to make any further changes, especially in the data modeling area. But what I want to focus on today, something I've been kind of discussing a little bit off and on over the course of the whole series, is the idea of key value versus SQL++. So here's the thing with, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see this. Here's the thing with relational databases, is that you basically have one way to interact with data, and that's a SQL query. You're always using SQL. So it's just a matter of the right SQL query, the right index, and so on. When we're talking about the NoSQL world, some people say it stands for not only SQL, and that's really true with Couchbase because I can use SQL, yes, but I can use other operations, other APIs like key value. And why would I do that? Well, the reason is that key value is a lookup where I know the key of the data. Think of like a primary key in a relational database, a document key. And if I know that key, I can just give that key to Couchbase, and it can find that key for me extremely fast. And it's going to be in memory usually, so we're talking microseconds to do a quick lookup of one piece of data, one document. SQL++, however, is going to have to engage a query parser and index engine, and it's going to have to execute that query. And then ultimately at the end, it may still have to do a key value lookup, multiple key value lookups probably, to get the data. So there's overhead involved with SQL++. However, in some situations, you just can't avoid it. And especially in our application, it's going to be used. It definitely will be used. So just a matter of how much am I going to use it. So let's look at something specific to this project. And we're going to talk about decisions that I'm thinking about making for this project. So what we've got over here on the right side, let's just do a little bit of drawing board here. On the right side here, this is how I'm currently modeling a user in Conduit, in the real world project here. The key is the email address, and the username is just data, like any of these other fields. So username, bio, image, they're just pieces of data. So what this means is that if I want to do a key value lookup, I can, if I have the email address, I can look up this. I can look up and get this user very quickly with that key value API. However, if I have just a username, if I have Jake as a string, I can't look that up because that's not the key. There is no document with the key of Jake. So then I have to do a SQL++ query saying where username equals Jake in order to get this document, or any documents that match username equals Jake. But of course, in our system, in my system, username is trying to be unique. It's supposed to be unique. So only this user should have Jake. So our SQL query will only ever return 0 or 1 results. All right. Another way we could model it is I could switch them around. I can make username the key, and then email be part of the data with bio, image. This is ignore that's just some stray typing. I'm not sure how that got there. Oh, it's word wrapping. That's what it's doing. Okay, sorry. So this is another way to model it. So if I have username, then I can do the quick key value lookup. If I have email, however, I can only do the SQL++ lookup. Okay, so that is something you need to consider. So with that in mind, I should have done this probably earlier in the project actually, is I did an analysis of the endpoints in the real world project to say, well, what should I use, username or email as the key? Keeping in mind that a key value lookup is going to be faster. And so basically I want to maximize my key value usage and minimize my SQL++ usage. Just a generally good rule of thumb. So what I did is I went through every endpoint, and this might not be possible in every system, right? But with real world, I have a pretty good spec, and it's a relatively small spec. So I can go through each one of these endpoints and figure out, well, which is better for this one? Username or which is required, username or email? So authentication uses email. This is the one case that I've found where email is actually required to do a lookup of authentication. And so that's kind of why I designed the system originally, to have email as a key. Registration looks like you can use username for inserting a new user. So you'll have a username to register. Get current user. So this is where it pulls information from the JWT token. So if I add username to that token, which I don't currently have, but if I add that to the token, then I can use username for lookup. Update user, can use username. Get profile, this is where username is required. This endpoint made me want to rethink the refactoring in the first place. Is, okay, well, maybe get profile is used a lot more than authentication. Authentication, I currently have it set to expire 4 hours. So at most, assuming everything goes right and the user isn't, removing their token all the time, or most likely clearing their cookies every 5 minutes or something. Even then, it's probably still the get profile is going to be used a lot more than authentication. Follow user, also username. Unfollow user, also username. So these 3 endpoints here are going to be used on a regular basis in this system. Authentication only used, at most, let's say, 6 times a day, tops, per user. List articles, so KV is never really an option for list articles. That's kind of true. We'll discuss more when we get there. Feed articles, also the same. It's very similar to list articles endpoint. So it's returning multiple results. So you really kind of need a SQL query for this. Get article, username is just returned as part of it. So it's not used as a lookup. Same with create articles. These are being created with the username being pulled from JWT. So just like earlier. Deleted article doesn't involve the user. Add comments, again, JWT. Get comments, it's just username is returned. Delete comment doesn't involve user. Favorite and unfavorite, again, username is just returned as part of that. And get tags, user is not even involved. So with that in mind, there's only one endpoint that I can tell that absolutely relies on email and there's no username present, and that's authentication. So in this system, the user logs in, they use their email address. They don't use their username. The username is kind of just for display and following purposes. So if that's the case, then I should just fall back to use SQL for email. Now, there is another option. I want to discuss this. I don't think I want to do this, but I want to discuss this as well. And this is kind of how the NoSQL world was before, in a key value, a pure key value NoSQL database. Let's say version 1 of Couchbase, for instance, would be kind of like this. And we're on version 7 now, so this is ancient history. But this still might be a useful pattern in some situations, and I want to discuss that. So I could model it this way. I could have my main document for the user have the primary key of the username, or email, either way, and then put the email in the body here. Okay? Which means if I want to do a key value lookup, I have to know the username. Email address is not going to be helpful to me. Now, next to that, I could also create a separate document with a key like this that repeats the email address and has a little suffix here. Isn't strictly necessary, but could put a little suffix, : username. So this is just a common delimiter in Couchbase. Nothing magic about it, but just a common delimiter. And what this means is that if I have the email address, I can do a key value lookup, and all that's in here, this shouldn't be even a comment here, all that's in here is the username. And I can take that username and go look up user document. So let's just recap that. Let's say I start with I have Jake. This is what's given to me from the API endpoint or something. With that, I can go to here and get all the information I need about Jake. All right, we're good there. If I have instead, I have the email. I'm not going to write the whole thing out, but let's say I have email in a string. What I want to do is I want to get all this information over here. I want to get this, but I can't get to that directly. I can get to this if I just append : username to it. And so this is going to be a key value lookup, very fast, microseconds. And then I will get the Jake value here. From there, I can make a second key value lookup. So this is key value. And that will give me all the information that I want. So what I'm basically doing here is I'm kind of creating an index by hand with a separate document. And this allows me to look up this user by either email or by key. So if I have email, it's going to be KV plus another KV. I'll call that KV prime. If I have just the username, well, you get the point there, username, it's just one KV lookup to go directly to that document. So in the case of email, it's an extra lookup, but we're talking microseconds plus microseconds. Over here, we're talking just microseconds. If I do the SQL as the alternative, so let's say I have email, I hope you can all read this, email for SQL plus plus, it's going to equal milliseconds to possibly seconds to do that lookup. And then you might say, well, Matt, it seems like you should never use SQL in that case. Well, no, absolutely not. Because this is just this specific example where I want to look up this user by username or by email. If I want to look them up by bio or by image, then I'd have to create even more documents. And so I'd basically be replicating an index engine with a key value engine. And that is something that you could certainly do, but it's going to be a lot of extra work, a lot of extra overhead to do that and keep those things straight, when an index engine is really a whole lot better. And additionally, SQL gives you a lot more benefits than simple lookups that I'm talking about here. We can do joins, we can do CTEs, window functions, aggregation, all kinds of interesting things with SQL that a key value engine would just be, it would be extremely painful to code all that stuff myself. So the only reason I would do this situation here, this alternative, what I've discussed here, is in a situation where there's where there's so many of these lookups that using SQL is not tenable. So I don't think we're going to reach that here. And the only other reason I would want to do this is if I don't want to include SQL in my Couchbase cluster at all for whatever reasons. I want to avoid SQL queries. I want to have a cheaper cluster, whatever the case may be. But as I showed you from that analysis, SQL is definitely going to have to be a requirement for a couple of these endpoints. So the question just is, should I use SQL here or not? And so for the meantime, I'm going to go with this strategy here of using the username as the key, because I think that's an acceptable trade-off. We'll find out later if we do any sort of load testing or performance testing, benchmarking, where this is going to be used a lot by a lot of users. So this might be used, 10, 20 times for every one for every one time, I need to look it up by email. So I think that's a pretty acceptable trade-off to do that. And I kind of wish I had done this from the beginning, because now I have to do some refactoring. And so you might have seen that already in this analysis here. I've identified the places that need to be refactored and what needs to be done in terms of migrating our existing data. Now, fortunately, we have not come along very far, so this is a relatively simple change in terms of migration. But it is work that needs to be done. So let's get to it. Moving this one in progress. Okay, so we'll bring up a real world project here. And I'm going to move this view off screen just so I can keep track of it. But you can certainly follow along as well if you want to. There's the ticket right there. In fact, that would be great if someone could keep that one open for me. So that, I have on one monitor, I've got this screen right here. On the second monitor over to this side of my desk, I've got my Streamlabs desktop, so I can kind of monitor what's going on with the stream. And then I got to kind of cram this GitHub issue into a small part of that screen. So, alrighty, let's get to it. So I've got first step is this get user by email method. This is using key value lookup. It needs to use SQL++ instead. Okay, no problem. In fact, I'm just going to copy a lot of this boilerplate here, and this might be a hint that if I'm copying boilerplate, maybe I need to refactor that. But let's just go with it for now. Paste this in here. So I still need the user collection provider. I still need all these names, except I'm not going to match by a username anymore. I'm going to match my email. Now, email wasn't previously in my documents, so that's another thing we'll have to deal with later. Oops, change that to email. So this is, and this is another note here. Like sometimes all I'm doing with this method is checking if a user exists. And to do that, I don't need to select u.star to check if they exist. That's kind of a waste. So I could change this. I could create another query called does user exist, where I use that in specific situations. But we'll get there. We'll get there. That's not important right now. So there is the change, the query. Everything else should be the same. If there are not any results, it's going to return not found. If there is a result, we're going to basically assert here that there's only one. That's why I'm using dot first and returning OK. Otherwise, it's going to throw an exception. So we'll go ahead and there we go. So that's done. Next is get user by username. Get user by username. By username is right here. Oh, I was looking right at it. And this needs to use, in fact, why don't I uncomment that? I'm basically swapping these. This needs to use the key value API instead. So comment that out. So uncomment this. And this is going to try and get by username instead. And that's really it. It's only a change I need to make there. Okay, done. Registering new user, and this is where it gets a little different. So I'm going to insert, but not by email. I'm going to insert by username. Everything else stays the same. So there we go. And this comment is now lying. This is why I'm always kind of wary about writing comments, but if I can remember to update them, then that's good. Registration shouldn't work if the username is already in use, and that's true. So if I register M. Groves, someone else can't come along and register M. Groves. It just won't work. That will return this failed to insert status. Okay, so we're really cooking now. Let's go to the user model. This is where I had email being ignored. I didn't want the email to be written into the document in any case, because I don't want it duplicated. The key is going to have the email, not the body. But now I want to switch it. So now the username is in the key, not the body. So now username is going to be ignored. And again, this comment is lying. So I need to change this. Okay, that's all we can do there. Now we go to update user fields is the next one. Okay, and this is, I can no longer change, my notes here says, this can now update email. So username can no longer be changed. So this needs to be, email can be changed. I probably need to put some, I actually didn't do this in the validator, but I need to change the validator to not allow you to copy someone else's email address. And the key is, of course, now username. So, yep, everything else is still the same. Good. Get profile by username. Okay, and so this is going to be, this is a profile now, not a user. So this is returning a, returning less information by default. Now, the question is, I mean, the way I had this before was SQL query would only return certain information. Now, I can still do that with the key value API. And that's probably fine. So let's go ahead and do that. So comment this stuff out here. I still need the collection. And we'll just say the user result equals await collection, get, and username. Okay. And then what I want to do is I want to return new whatever this result here, new user. We'll figure that out in a second. Data result status is okay. Okay, now the new user, need to set this to only bio. The actual with the user is user result.content as user. Remember, it is JSON data. It's not a .NET object, so I have to specify what .NET object I want to put it in. Excuse me, I'll put it in. Bio equals user.bio. Image equals user.image. And username equals user.username. I could copy other things over, but the profile is never supposed to display those, so there's no sense in doing that. It's kind of a little bit of extra data security. Okay, so I can get rid of this. So there we go. Last one is does exist user by email and username. Okay, oops, let me go to the implementation of this. Okay. Okay, so this needs to be switched around because username is no longer in the data. It's now email. And now username is the key, so this is username. So actually this might be okay. I might not have to change the validator because this is how it's checking to see if that email and username pair is already taken. Where it's not me, someone else has that email already taken. That's basically what we're checking here. So I think that's probably fine. Everything else stays the same. Okay, that was quick. So that was a lot faster than I thought. I just updated 4, 5, 6, 7 data service methods, and they're all in the same file. So it's kind of cool that I reduced the reasons for classes to change. So the next thing is these handlers. So this is the get current user handler. So this is getting email claim to look up a user by email. Now I don't want to do that anymore. I want to look up the user by username. So I really have to go start the auth service here. So let's go back to the auth service. Generate JWT token. This is where I should put in the claim types of username as well. But is there a username? I don't know if can I use anything besides, yeah, it's a string, so I could use whatever I wanted to here. But it would be nice if there's one built in for username. There's user data, locality. Is there anything else in here? Let's give a name. I'm pretty sure I can use an arbitrary string here. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention this up top. It was in the text file, but 10:30, I got to drop. I have an important meeting I need to go to. I will be back after that meeting. It shouldn't be more than half an hour, I don't think. But let's see, what else can I put in here? So I don't want to use anything that's not descriptive. So let's go ahead and just call username with a capital U. And we'll put username, which has not been passed in. So that needs to be passed in here too. Which means I need to update the interface here. Okay, which means whoever's calling that is going to have to use that as well. So get current user handler. Wait, let's go back here. So now I'm putting in 2 claims into that token. So it's JSON web token, right? So I can put any sort of arbitrary data I want to in there. But in the case of JWTs, those are called claims. So if I say, give me the username. That's I want to get that claim information out of the token. I think this is how it works. I guess we'll see, right? But then I can create another method where I can actually get that result back out. This is going to be get username claim out of the token, and it's going to be getting the not claim type equals email, but username. That might be something I want to put in like a constant. Whoops. Oh, that's wait, hang on, up here. Private constant string username. I'll just call it claim type username. There we go. So I don't have to worry about typos, at least. Or do I? Typos are always the bane of my existence. Okay, and down here. So if it turns out username is not allowed, I can change it to something else as well. So that's nice. Change it in 2 places. Still need to put this config stuff into app settings. That's a different ticket though. We'll get to that. Okay. Back to the handler. So I don't want the email claim anymore. I want the username. Wait, why didn't it? Oh, because I didn't actually add this to the interface. And this might be a little much, having one method for each claim. I would say I'm at the point where if I'm adding anything else to this, I'm going to have to make a more generic way to get those values out. But from what I can tell, I'm only ever going to use email and username for this application, so we'll just stick with that. That's no reason to complicate it more just yet. But what I want is the username claim, and this is going to be, change this to username claim. And if it's not found, then invalid token, yep. Get not email, not by email anymore, get user by username. And this should no longer be email, this should be username. Pulling the value out. Okay, and then JWT token is going to now include, so this should be email, wait. Oh gosh. So this is an issue here. This is user.email. Yep, okay. And this is user.email and user.username. But no. Is that going? I don't think it's going to actually be in there. Let's put that right here and right here, because it's no longer in the data. It is the key. It's metadata. So I think that will work. Okay. Now I have tests running as well, so we'll get to those in a second here. All right. The other handler is update user handler. I need to use get by username instead of get by email. Get user by username. And this is going to be username. Again, with the token, it needs to be email and then username. So all those things are passed in via the request. Although, not correct, because potentially I could update a user without, hey, hello, Gamlor, how's it going? Great to see you. I could update a user without trying to change my email address, so I need to pull this from the user itself. Yes. It's like I can't count on that being in the request. But username I can. That must be there. Update user request. Let me just double check that, in fact. You must, okay. So yeah, this needs to change. You must specify at least one of those things, email, not username, that's required. Which means I probably have to change the shared user validator to also require username. I don't think I put any requirements in here. This needs to be where the requirements are. You must specify at least one of, so this probably needs to be changed. Yeah, so email. Okay. But I know that username must be required. Let me look at the shared user validator again. Email just not, yeah, okay. So this is no longer the case. This must be username. Username must not be empty. And I don't need that email address validator there. Oh, wait. Okay. So I can get rid of this because email can now be optional, but username is required, not empty. With message, username is required. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this limit of 100 characters for the user. We'll get to that for the next endpoint. I think that might come into play for the next endpoint. Like, how long do I really want the username to be? And why does it matter? I will get to that. So I have a feeling I'm going to see some failing test for sure when I go and try this. So this needs to be back to email. But that's okay. That's why the tests are there. Okay, so where was I? Update user handler. This is just passing in the user, which is totally fine. Yep. Let me just double check that. Yep. Okay, good. Okay, so I think that's good. We're good on handlers. The auth service stuff, I already changed those. Migration options. So one thing I need to do is, if you go back to migrations, I have this index on the username field. Well, that no longer makes sense. So two things. Fortunately, well, the way I normally do this is, if this was already in production, I would have to create a third migration to roll back this index and create a new index. I'm not in production. Also, if I was in development and there was 10 migrations and this was number 2, again, I'd probably have to create an 11th migration to roll this back. But we're early enough in the process where this is the latest migration. I don't have to worry about domino effect. So I can just go ahead and change this. And I'm going to make this, create an index on the email field in users collection. And all I need to do is change this to email. The name doesn't really matter, but I want it to be accurate on the email field and delete that index. Okay. Now the other thing is, and this snuck up on me, and this is why, I'll get back to those error messages you might have seen at the very beginning of this stream, and why, for instance, trivia wasn't working, and why my helper bot isn't working. It's because I migrate everything over to use my Couchbase Capella account. Now, unfortunately, the Couchbase Capella is a 30-day trial, and my trial, it snuck up on me. It actually just lapsed before I had a chance to switch it to a different Capella account. I actually do have access to a full Capella instance. It's not a trial, which I want to get it over to. That's currently a work in progress right now. That's even better, because now I don't have to worry about these migrations. I'll just connect them to a new thing. Now I'm going to create a new Capella. I'm going to connect to a new Capella instance soon. But what I want to do now is, just to make sure everything's working, I'm going to go ahead and run Couchbase Server in Docker here locally. So let me fire up Docker. Hopefully that'll work. I've not had much luck with Docker on this stream, that's for sure. I used to use Docker practically every day. With Capella around now, I'm using it less and less. But yeah, it used to be a trusty little standby, but it's just been giving me some problems. So there's Docker. Just a quick showing you the Couchbase image on Docker Hub. So this is the official Couchbase account on Docker Hub, and I always like to go here because it gives me this little command line. And I may have brought this up before. When it comes to command line, I think they're great and everything, but I always have trouble remembering all the different flags and command line stuff, especially I'm not using it every day. So I can just go and copy and paste this here into my little terminal window. I'm going to change this name to DB Conduit. Running in detached mode, that's what -D is. I'm naming it DB Conduit and opening all these ports. I don't necessarily need all these for what I'm doing with Couchbase, but it's good defaults to throw them out there just in case I do want to use those. This is using the latest version of Couchbase, which I believe is still 7.2. Yep, 7.2, and it defaults to Enterprise. So on those Enterprise, it's the paid version. If you are using it just for experimentation or local development, don't worry about it. It's fine. Use the Enterprise Edition if you want to. That way you can get the full set of features, all the latest, all the different engine options, and it's all there. You don't have to worry about is this in community or not. Now, everything I'm doing in this project, this real-world project, as far as I know, I can't see everything in the future, but as far as I know, it will all be working with the community edition of Couchbase if you want to use community. Let's see, tail and code. Actually, security-wise, if you really should only open up ports that you're going to use. That is true. That is true. Correct. These are ports that are for different Couchbase services. So, like 8096 is, I think, the eventing port, for instance. I'm not going to use eventing, but just in case in the future I might want to, I'm opening that up here. Now, the thing is, Taylor and Code, you're absolutely right when it comes to opening ports. This is all running locally. This is not accessible outside, I don't think even my desktop. So not a big deal. But yes, that is a very good practice. Don't open up ports if you're not going to need them. In production, you can always open them up later if you need to. Now with Docker, it's a real problem to, once I've got an image running, a container running, I can't really just add new ports to it. It's always been an annoying thing about Docker. So I'm just doing it, one, because I'm lazy and it's copy and paste, but two, because I might use them later and I don't want to have to recreate the whole image to do that. Now, probably only using this for like one day. But yes, a very good point, Taylor Code. And by the way, thanks for joining this stream there. Why isn't it loading up? Docker, what happened here? What, Docker PS? See, it's been so long. It says it's up. Okay, there we go. Just took a second to warm up. So I'm going to create a new cluster here. I'm going to call it that, but I'm going to call it for Conduit. Another good security practice is always use the password of password. PASSWRD. That's the most popular password, and therefore that's the one you should use. No, that is absolutely a joke. I'm going to give this some minimum memory because I don't need that much. I don't need these services. Again, this is an area where I can't really add these back in later unless I add a second, third, fourth node, that sort of thing. That's totally fine right now. This image will be long gone before I ever need to use analytics or eventing. So I'll turn those off. Turn off backup as well. I'm going to leave search on. I don't know if I'll ever use it for this project. There's not a search endpoint as far as I know, but it's possible that a search might make sense in a search indexes might make sense in some situations. So I'm going to leave that one on. Standard indexing is fine. Standard paths is fine. And there we go. I can change those memory quotas later, but I can't add more services later unless I add additional nodes to this cluster. Okay. So then I'm going to go add the bucket, call it Conduit. Give it the minimum memory quota because we're not working with much data here locally. Turn off replication. It's not going to work anyway because I only have the one node. So add that bucket. Okay, and there we go. So at this point, it's time to start running some tests. Let's run unit tests first, see what breaks. And then we'll run integration tests. And then we'll run some just manual tests as well, make sure everything works. So where's my unit test explorer? Unit test explorer. Units. Unit auth. Okay. Why is it unit auth? What the heck? That's not correct. Did I mess up these folders somewhere? I must have. Okay, well, look at that. They're all passing. So the integration tests, that can't be right because they're not even connected to the right thing. What is going on here? Let's try this again. That may have been old results. Oh, it's not even compiling. Okay. Alrighty. So a couple places where it's broken. Makes sense. So this needs to be email and username. So this is login. User obj.username. Okay. And right here, same thing. So this is kind of the downside of adding too many claims or adding more claims to a token is that I have to now update that everywhere. So this is, again, might be a case for refactoring how I'm approaching claims. It might be a case for, hey, maybe don't put email in there, but we're gonna keep going. If it gets worse than this, then I'll have to refactor for sure. Okay, yeah, all kinds of stuff breaking. All right, so didn't even get to running the test. It's just broken. Okay, username. So yeah, I'm going to make username equal to something as well. Valid username. And that has to be down here. I should have just copied and pasted that, but what are you going to do? Okay. Where else? Where else is it broken? Okay. Username equals doesn't matter in this case. But needs to go in there for the sake of the token. And this needs to be mocked out with 2 parameters instead of the 1. Okay, generate token. User in database. Yeah, so this is user in database dot username. This is a integration test, right? Yep. Okay, one more. This looks like it's just mocking out completely, stubbing it out, whatever. So that doesn't really do anything. Okay, there we go. Let's run those unit tests again. What's going to break? Oh, still not there. Oh, gosh. Okay. This test might not need to exist anymore, but doesn't matter. Okay. Now can we run the test? See what breaks? Okay, well, that's not too bad. That's 15 tests failed. All right, so what is the problem? Invalid token is handled. So this is where I got a fake token coming in, or I got an invalid token. And yeah, it's probably not using email claim anymore, is it? Yeah, it is. So this is a test problem, get username claim. So now it should run. So there's two. Three actually. Okay, this is users missing from databases handled, so certainly is the case where it could possibly not be there. Right? So what is this test doing? This is basically saying it's getting email claim again. So yeah, again, this is because I switched the claims around. Okay, well, still not passing. Got null reference exception. Is it get user by username? It needs to be, okay, yep. Need to change that because I'm using a different method as well to get the data. Okay, another one fixed. So right now it's just broken tests. I'm not actually finding any problems with my code just yet. I think we'll get there, but okay, this one is valid token is handled. So this is a null reference to, again, get username claim. Yep. Okay. Another null reference is get user by username. Yep. Okay. Okay, we got some stuff that's not matching. Wait, what? Expected doesn't matter, but was my fake email example. Do I have? Okay, a couple of things going wrong here. It's not. It's okay. It looks like it's getting the username. Expected the username. Okay. User from database. Let me look at this. Oh, yeah, okay. Right. So I'm actually... No, that makes sense. Why is it not... Why is one not matching the other? Username to username, email to email. This is going email username. Yep, yep. Oh, this is, okay. This is getting username, okay. Yikes, okay. So that should return the username, not the email, from the claim itself. Still failing. Get user by username. Oh, this should be username, not email. There we go. Pass. Okay, handle invalid email returns error. So what's the problem here? Email address must be valid. Okay. So this is registration request. Okay, so it needs to be, what's the error message we're getting here? Email address must not be empty, but email address must be valid. So this is doing something. Registration request validator. This okay, I think I was relying on the shared user validator before, saying that email is required, but that is no longer the case. It no longer is required across all those shared models. So I need to put a rule here. x.model.user.email cascade mode.stop not empty, right? Not empty with message. I was in the test here. Email address must not be empty. For registration, it absolutely is required to be there. Okay. Run them again. Okay. Expected 1, but was 2. So I got 2 error messages. I should not be getting 2. Which one is it that's failing? Is the blank one. I'm going to debug just that one. Debug this one. Just the one test case. What are the validation errors that it's getting? Email address must be valid. Email address must not be empty. So it's getting both of those. Really only want it to return 1. Although, yeah. So if it's empty, then it should just be like, okay, done. Maybe. Should this be? Well, that already is using cascade mode stop. Should this be maybe first? Does the ordering matter here? Nope, doesn't seem to matter. Okay. Share user validator. Let's look at it again here. Email address must be valid. These all cascade mode stop. So why is it getting? Because they're both on email. Okay, I think. What did I do for this before? It was. What was the login request validator? I had some conditionals, I thought. No. Yeah, so I think the issue here is it's firing on this when it's blank. A blank is not a valid email address, but I don't want it to return that error message if it's blank. I want it to just return, hey, you didn't give me an email address at all. So I can put some logic in here saying if not, why is this password? This should be email. If it's not null or empty, or if it is null or empty, then just go ahead and return. Return true. It's not technically valid. Short circuit if the given email is empty. Other validations should catch that. Okay, and this is, again, email. My goodness. How did that happen? Okay. So if I run this again. Okay, there we go. Good. Now, a couple more. At least one field must be specified to update. Okay. Left some old comments in here. Get rid of that. You must specify at least, okay, this is no longer the correct message, right? It's got to be email, password, image, bio. This should be email. And this should always be valid username. Yep, got to switch this around to test different things because I refactored. So let's see if that works. Okay, that is good. Then I have this one again. Again, some more old comments in there. Email address must not be empty. Email address must not be empty. Email address must be valid. What are the errors I'm getting here? Value cannot be null. Value cannot be null. What are we talking about? We've got, we got a null reference exception because it's passing validation. That's not good. This should never get past validation. Because email, that's because I'm using, what? So it looks like this test is wrong. Oh, gosh. Okay. Let's see. Maybe it's because I had the test wrong in the first place. Okay, well, that's better. So one of them is passing. Now we got a null reference exception. Looks like when it's blank or null is when we get the exception, which, okay, that still worries me because I wrote that little short circuit bypass deal there. So this is update user model. Okay. So this is actually a wrong test because I'm refactoring it. So this should be valid username must be specified. And so email address we can say is valid.net, but the username is going to be the thing we're testing here. And those messages are username is required. Username is required. Username is required. And, well, the username must be at most 100 characters long. So I can put a really long username. Really long username. Do a quick time check here. That meeting I'm going to is in half an hour. Just remember, I will be gone for that meeting, but I'll be back to finish up today. I'm also going off this afternoon to Dayton, Ohio, about an hour-ish drive away, for a user group presentation tonight. So I was thinking about changing today's stream to this afternoon, but then I remembered I won't even be, I'll be in the car probably for that. Okay. Okay, we're still getting an error message. What is the problem here? Email, username, returns false. We're still getting an error. I thought this would work. So it's still getting past the validation. That's not good. That's not what I want. And I'm concerned it's because of that short circuit I put in there. This is one of those issues where I really wish ChatGPT could help, but I don't think it can. So we've got this username, submit user username, submit, does user exist? It should never get to that point. Or should it? It's not shared, but it's going to update user validator, update user request validator. Yep. So what are the error messages? It's not getting any error message. That's the thing. There's no validations that are causing us to fail, which doesn't make sense. I'm passing in null and empty usernames. Username is not required here. Maybe that's the issue. Let's see. Shared user validator. Username is not required here. Yes, it is. Username is required, but it's checking for null or empty. Okay. That's the problem. Okay, it's a short circuit. So I wasn't really comfortable with that anyway. So it's going to make these tests pass, but then I got to fix the other ones, right? Nope. Nope, still not passing. Username is required. Oh, wait a second. It's not that. It should be username. I'm not even looking at the email address. All it's saying is it's got to be a valid email. Username should still be required. So username would be null or blank, null or empty string in there. That gets submitted. And then it should, okay, right. Then it should go to this handler, run the validation, and the validation should say, hey, username is not valid. Let me just set a breakpoint here. See what's going on. Okay, so here's the request. Username is empty string, but the result is valid. How is that possible? Yeah, I know, whatever. How is that possible? Update user request, validator. You should be using the shared model first, yes. Shared user validator, where username is required, not empty. Oh, this is the. Oh, you know what? This is okay. This is what I like. Having his whens in here. Yeah, instead of this. I like that better. That way, it's part of the validation, not part of my, the actual method. Because yeah, null and empty string aren't valid email addresses, so it should return false. All right, I'm going to need a quick coffee break second. So after these messages, I'll be right back. By the way, today's coffee is brought to you by the Kalahari Resorts, where I will be soon this month for that conference. I think you can still get tickets for it, that.us. Check it out. It's a great conference. I'll be there. I'll be speaking. I'll be at the Couchbase booth. If you want to come talk about the Conduit Project, I'd love to talk to you about it. If you have criticism, suggestions, or something you want to do yourself with a different language, different framework, love to help you out with that. And that's the whole reason I'm doing this, actually, is not just to get this project out there, but that's certainly a big part of it, but is to kind of make it let it be a blueprint for other people who want to create Conduit implementations with Couchbase. I can at least help with the data access layer and say, well, this is maybe the best way to go when it comes to data access. So, all right, let's get back to it. Debugging this pesky little failing test. Why isn't it stopping for the username? I feel like it's got to be something in my test, right? Username equals username, which is going to be null or empty string. And that gets submitted here. I already debugged that. Does user exist? Returns false. Yeah, that's not a problem either. What is going on? What am I doing wrong? What am I missing here? Ooh, that's hot. Actually spilled. I was cleaning my coffee machine the other day, and I was you put vinegar and water in it, and one of the I had a cup underneath the Keurig portion of it to collect the water, and it was starting to overflow. So I went and grabbed it to try to pour it out, and I accidentally spilled it on my hand. Got like a minor burn. Had to use some burn cream on my hand yesterday. Completely clumsy. That's what I am. I'm a 6'6", really clumsy goof. I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm a cheapskate. I buy stuff that I know I'm probably going to break because of my clumsiness, so that I don't have to spend as much on the replacement. Okay. This is the kind of situation where I might stop, go take a little walk, or watch a short YouTube video, come back, and then the solution will present itself. Like somehow it'll work it out in my brain, or I'll see something different when I sit back down. We're not at break time yet, though. At 10:30 is when I need to jump off. I'll probably get a little earlier than that, but so I'm gonna try to power through this and figure out why this test is not behaving, or why the handler is not behaving like I expect it to. It should never reach this point. It should end right here. Return validation errors. Okay, you know what? Oh, this needs to change too. It should be email here. That doesn't really matter, but just for naming sake, need to change that, because username is Couchbase is going to handle that. It's a constraint on the key, but username is something that we have to enforce at the application layer. That hey, you can't take someone else's email address and in fact change the message to that email is already in use, which is maybe a little bit of a security issue to say that, but I'm going to go with it. I'm probably going to mix with a test fail. So, well, let's do this. Let's go ahead and just run all the tests again, see what else is broken, and maybe something will shake loose. Okay. Looks like no. All right, username can only be changed. All right, so yeah, that's the thing I just broke. That email is already in use. So that's going to pass, right? Yep, great. But this one is still not behaving. Valid username must be specified. Username. I wish I could step through the validation. It's up. It's this validator right here. Oh, what happened? Not match any other email. Oh, well, maybe this is the issue. Email. Maybe that's the issue right there. And that should be a. Well, let's see. Maybe we got lucky. Nope, that's not the issue. But I also don't like this because I should be using a with there. Or was it when? X dot model dot. What is it? Model dot user dot email. When it is not the case, that string is null or empty. Whoops. X dot model. Yeah. Okay. Then I can get rid of this. Still going to fail, aren't you? Yep. Why is it ever getting there? I don't get it. I just don't get it. It's very frustrating. Just set some breakpoints. I don't know. I don't know what else to do at this point. I don't think these actually execute. The rules don't. I mean, they execute in advance, I think. But it's worth a shot, I guess. All right. Debug this one. See, it's just going to build these rules. It's not actually executing them, I don't think. Here's a model, username is blank. That really, I mean, You know what, this should only, email should always be set. This should be username. Again, I don't think that's the issue, but let's try it. Nope, that's not the issue. And this should be, I should change this name here. Goodness gracious. But if I run it again, it'll work this time. Nope, still doesn't. Oh, this is frustrating. Well, it looks like I'm going to be forced to take a break here soon because we're coming up on that 10:30 stop. Might be the best thing for it, unfortunately. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. So I appreciate you all hanging out with me during my frustration. I will be back. I have a meeting that's 10:30. It's scheduled for half an hour, so I'll probably be back around 11 or so, and I'll go into lunch with that. Hopefully, come back with some fresh eyes and see what the deal is. But until then, let's do a quick raid, skis. Where's my team? There's my team. Okay, so who do we got? Well, C-Sharp Fritz, of course. Rated him recently. Paragon Stream. Not English. Tomcat. I think I rated him last time. Tiomi Y. Also not English. Hey, Gemlor. Good to see you. Maybe consider coming back after the break. But Pirate Software. Whoa, sorry for the language there. Let's go to Tomcat, the talking cat. Doing some World of Warcraft stuff. I'm gonna raid Tomcat real quick. I will be back after the break. I'm not going to join you for the raid. I've got to get ready for this meeting, but if you come back, I would love to see you here again after the meeting. I hope you all have a great day otherwise.